Hey y'all, it's me again. I'm here in the garden. It's July the 1st here in Arkansas. It's not really been that hot. It's been in the mid-90s, which it's usually hotter than that here by now, but it has been humid and it is plenty hot enough. The garden's looking really well. Got peppers, cucumbers, and different stuff, but there's nothing in particular that I want to show you in this video, so I thought this would be a good video just to give you an all-around farm tour. I don't know if I've done that yet, so I'm going to do one today and probably do one later on in the summer. So let's check it out. For those of you that are just checking in, this market garden is not an actual for-profit market garden. I'm wanting to do basically a test run because in about a year and a half I want to start a market garden at my home place in Alabama. But you can see here we're up high. I got a fenced in area that's about 25 by 25, and I have 4 25-foot beds that are standard 30-inch width. And so you can see peppers, cucumbers. I don't think you can see the squash from here, but then you can see the okra on the last row. And then on the other side here I have a little fenced in area, and this is more just my personal garden. It's got some weird stuff in it that didn't feel like really fit into the production scheme of the big market garden. So yeah, here's an overview. Things are looking pretty good. So I'll just start at one end of the garden and work my way down. This is the okra row, which is actually a double row. The okra is probably my favorite crop. So what I did is, you can see I've got a 30-inch bed, just like I said, and I've got 2 rows spread out a little over a foot, and you can see down through there, and so it's looking pretty good. You can see these nice healthy stalks, and I've tried them 9 inches apart and 12 inches apart, and I think I'm gonna go with the 12. Seems to work best because these are an heirloom variety, and they're kind of a beast of a plant, because they'll get, by the time the season's up, I may have stalks like that big around at the base. And so there is a young bloom, so I'm not far from getting some production. And yeah, really beautiful red burgundy. I like this variety, and it's really productive besides being beautiful. On the next row over we got squash, and this is a white patty pan squash. I've grown all different types. I know that yellow straight neck and crook neck is really popular here in the south, and that's kind of why I went with the white patty pan. I wanted something to differentiate myself because everybody's growing the straight neck. But I am starting to get some production. You can see the plants are really nice. This is like almost waist high on me, but the plants are looking really great. And I have picked a few fruit off of here already. So there's a young one. I've got some more in here. Really dense plants. Only problem with this, and I knew this before I planted them because I've done it a lot in the past, is this is a small garden, and this is how most of the market gardens would be. It'd actually be more crowded. As you can see, my pathways are pretty wide compared to most people's. And you can see this stuff is headed over into the next aisle, and that's going to be a problem. I'm just going to have to deal with it. But in the future, I don't know, maybe I can have a squash patch off to the side of the garden and a couple isolated beds or something. I don't know how I'll do that. But anyway, it's looking really great, and I'm starting to get production. And this is my favorite as far as taste and cooking and all of that. This is my favorite variety, and this is the white scallop. And I like the Bennings green tint. I just think that this one does a little better. That's just personal opinion, whatever works for you. I don't know if you remember earlier in the season that I interplanted some Thai basil in here, and some of it's still doing pretty well, some of it not so much, but it's getting crowded out. So I'm gonna let it go. It's not hurting anything. I just probably won't get much production from it, but I am gonna try to take some cuttings today and just see if that works out of curiosity. And you can see some here under the shade. Got it in through out here, and I said before, if I do this again, I'll plant it a lot denser and get some cuttings early on before the squash turns into a monster and crowds it out. So here's the cucumbers, and this is probably one of the biggest learning curves this year. I've adopted this trellis system and pruning system from a fellow YouTuber, and it didn't work as well for me as it did for him, and that's not his fault. It's not his fault at all. He's doing great with it. I wasn't doing everything just right, and I'm thinking that my variety may be a little off, that I should have tried a different variety, but I wasn't pruning as heavy as I needed to be, and I wasn't really being patient enough. But what was happening, if I can find one here, because I'm still behind on the pruning on a couple I seen this morning, but you got to prune these suckers off that come out at every node. Well, I am pruning them off, and I've got most of them, but I did find this one. But you can see they're really trying to produce. So there's 2 young cucumbers. I talked about this before, but I want them on the main leader. That's the whole idea of this system. Well, I was getting really worried about it, but now that I've got them pruned back properly, I'm starting to see some growth on the main leader, which I'm really happy about. There's a nice one on the bottom. There's a few nice ones on the bottom, and right here there's one. So like I said, if I produce a cucumber at every node, and they still got the parts there, they just haven't did it. So there's the male flower, but there should be the female part in there that makes the actual cucumber in there. And another thing I did was I pruned off a lot of the leaves at the bottom and opened it up, and that's for a few reasons. I thought maybe it would force the fruiting growth, and I wanted to open it up for disease problems, or to stop disease problems, that is. And I've got basil interplanted in the middle. I don't know if you remember that, and I have got some harvest off of it, but it's starting to get shaded out. But now that I've got it opened up, I'm really pleased with the basil performance. Only thing is I wished I had planted them a lot denser, which I will do the next time I try this. So yeah, pretty exciting. Never have trellis cucumbers before. I've always let them run wild, but you can see how tight this garden is. Kind of like the same problems with the squash, but this would be like tenfold. I grew these the last garden I had here a year before last, and I planted them on that side of the garden, and they made their way over here, choking out pretty much everything in their path. And this is supposed to be a short vining variety, and it still went 6, 8 feet, maybe more than that, 10 feet. So here's a pepper row, and I'm really excited about this. Now these varieties that I've got planted, I didn't plant these with production in mind. I would probably plant a hybrid bell type for that, and for the hot peppers I might use those varieties, but majority of this row is a sweet pepper from Nicaragua, and it's called, if I'm pronouncing this right, Criolla de Cocina. And I grew it once before, and it was a really awesome tasting pepper, really unique tasting, and I want it to cook with for chili and stuff like that. But I didn't get really good production, but I didn't do that good at taking care of the plants that year. So this year they're looking a lot better, even though I had a mess up at the start with my fertility. Plants looked really bad for a while, but they pulled out and they're looking pretty decent. Still have this one guy, he's a little duddish, but he'll make it. And then there's the last one. So yeah, this is more for me than for production, but I'd be using the same growing methods with any type of sweet pepper, I think. So the learning part should be there for me. I should get that educational aspect out of it. And the fish peppers is what I chose for hot peppers mostly. So I have 4 of them. Two of them have gotten broke. This was one of them, and I was hoping that that part would live, because I have had them live before, but it didn't. So some shoots come off of the base. That white variegation you see, that is normal for this plant. So it's a great edible. That's why I'm growing it, because it is a unique tasting pepper. But this is probably the only pepper that I know that has this variegation, white variegation, and it's just really beautiful, really unique looking. And like I said, they were held back at the start of the season where I had a mess up with the fertility, but they're coming on now. So that's the peppers. We're in the personal garden now, and this is all container stuff. If you haven't seen it before, some of it are these 50-gallon drums cut in half and put on stands. Those work really well, they have been. And then the rest of them are smart pots like this and this. They're like a cloth type material, and they're catching on in popularity. A lot of people use these now, and I seem to like them already better than the plain plastic ones. But I won't wait till the year finishes out and we get through the heat of summer before I say a whole lot about them. But we'll just get started here. Have a fish pepper planted at the same time as the others, doing really well. Habanero, so I have some seed mix from Baker Creek called the Lightning Mix. It's actually just a lot of genetic diversity in one pepper is what I understand it to be. It's not a mixed packet, it's just a genetically diverse pepper. And I've grown them before and got everything from the normal orange habaneros to a bunch of different weird stuff. So hopefully they'll produce and I can show you that. And I have a few because I want to tap into that diversity. So I have two more nice ones here, two more in this bed, and in this basil bed I have two more plants. So I have 7 total. That'll give me a lot of diversity, probably shapes, sizes, colors. Other peppers I've got is these little Thai burpa peppers, little like a cayenne looking Thai pepper, but shorter, really cool looking. Never grown these before, so this is new. Basil mixed in. Got a few tomatoes. They didn't do too good, so I ain't gonna talk a lot about them. I think I've got some disease issues. We've got 2 more cherries over here, not looking that great. Another Thai pepper, and this bed over here is just a hodgepodge, and it's not looking so great. But really pleased with pepper production and the smart pots for the most part. That's the biggest success in this garden. And the basil. Basil always seems to do good. Well, I hope y'all can get an idea of what's going on in the test market garden here. So far, this little practice model has worked out really well for me, but I don't want to say a whole lot about it until I've went through a full year of it to see, you know, how it works. But size of it and everything seems to be pretty good. So, you know, if somebody wants to try this same thing to get their feet wet, I think it'll work, but I don't want to say so yet until I've tried it a little bit longer to see how things go. Anyway, I hope y'all liked that and got some use out of it. And if you did, give me a thumbs up. And that'll be it for today. I'll see y'all later. Bye.